8 years ago you let them lock me away. You believed I was crazy.
I didn't know the truth, not until it was too late.
My name is Camille, and 8 years ago, they locked me in a psychiatric facility, told me I was insane, told me the 3 babies growing inside me didn't exist. But I escaped. I gave birth to them in a cabin during a blizzard, and now, the whole world is searching for me, and him, the husband who once believed I'd lost my mind, is standing in front of me, begging for a chance to be a father. Do you think I'll forgive him? Or disappear forever?
Before I share the rest of my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever overcome the impossible for your family.
The first time I saw Graham Whitmore, he was arguing with a barista about the ethics of oat milk. Not in an entitled way, more like a philosopher who'd accidentally wandered into a coffee shop. His hands moved when he talked, sketching invisible diagrams in the air. I remember thinking, this man could convince me the sky was green. "You're staring," my friend Marcy whispered, nudging me with her elbow. I was. God help me, I was. When he finally got his coffee, regular milk after all that, he turned and our eyes met. He smiled, and something in my chest cracked open like an egg. "I'm Graham," he said, walking over. Just like that. No pretense, no game. "Camille," I managed. "You witnessed my complete inability to order coffee like a normal person." I thought it was charming. He laughed, and I was done for. We talked for 3 hours that day. About everything and nothing. He was brilliant. A tech entrepreneur working on making medical records more accessible to patients. But he listened like I was the only person in the world. When I mentioned I was a freelance writer, he leaned forward, genuinely interested. "What do you write about?" "Whatever pays the bills," I said, then surprised myself by adding, "But I'm working on a novel about women who disappear." "Disappear how?" "Not physically, just from their own lives. They wake up one day and realize they've become ghosts in their own stories." He studied me then, really looked at me. "That's terrifying." "Yeah," I said, "it is." We met for coffee every Tuesday after that. Then Tuesdays became Tuesdays and Thursdays, then every day. 6 months in, I knew I loved him. The kind of love that rewrites your DNA, that makes you understand why people do impossible things. The day I met his mother should have been my first warning. Victoria Whitmore lived in a Georgetown townhouse that breathed old money. Every surface gleamed. Every painting hung at perfect angles. She answered the door herself, tall, elegant, with silver hair pulled back in a chignon that looked carved from marble. "You must be Camille," she said, and I heard the must like a question. Over dinner, she interrogated me with surgical precision, disguised as small talk. Where was I from? Richmond, originally, but my parents moved there from Saigon. What did my parents do? My mother's a seamstress. My father died when I was 12. Where did I go to school? State college, on scholarship. With each answer, I watched her file me away in some mental cabinet marked unsuitable. Graham squeezed my hand under the table. Later, in his car, he said, "I'm sorry about her." "She's protecting you," I said, trying to be generous. "From what? Happiness?" But I knew from what. From me. The wrong side of town girl with the wrong pedigree and the wrong everything else. What I didn't know was how far she would go. The night Graham proposed, it snowed. We were at our favorite restaurant. Nothing fancy, just a place that made good pasta and didn't judge you for ordering dessert first. He got down on one knee right there between tables, not caring who saw. "Marry me," he said. "Make me argue about oat milk with you forever." I said yes before he even finished talking. Victoria's reaction was arctic. "How sudden," she said when we told her. Then to me, "I suppose congratulations are in order." She hosted an engagement party that felt more like a wake. Her friends, judges, senators, old money wives, circled me like sharks, smiling with too many teeth. One woman, after 3 martinis, patted my hand and said, "Don't worry, dear. The prenup negotiations aren't as bad as they seem." "There's no prenup," Graham said, appearing at my elbow. The silence that followed could have frozen hell. But here's the thing about love. It makes you brave in stupid ways. We got married anyway, in a small ceremony in Vermont. Just us. 2 witnesses, and a justice of the peace who smelled like pipe tobacco. I wore a simple white dress I'd found at a vintage shop. Graham cried when he saw me. Victoria attended, of course. She wore black. As we exchanged rings, she pressed a box into my hands. "A family heirloom," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Inside was a pearl necklace, luminous and perfect. "It's beautiful," I said, because what else could I say? "Pearls for tears," she murmured, fastening it around my neck. "An old superstition." Graham rolled his eyes. "Mother, please." But I felt the weight of those pearls like a collar. We were happy, though. God, we were happy. We found an apartment in DuPont Circle, all exposed brick and morning light. I wrote at the kitchen table while Graham built his company from our spare bedroom. We cooked together, badly. We danced to no music. We made plans. 9 months after our wedding, on a gray Tuesday morning, I stared at 3 positive pregnancy tests lined up on the bathroom counter like soldiers. "Camille?" Graham called. "You okay in there?" I opened the door. He took one look at my face and knew. "Really?" he whispered. I nodded, and he lifted me off my feet, spinning me around our tiny bathroom until we were both dizzy and laughing. "We're having a baby," he kept saying. "We're having a baby." At my first ultrasound, the technician went very quiet. She moved the wand across my belly, frowning at the screen. "I'll be right back," she said. Graham gripped my hand. "What's wrong?" The doctor came in, studied the screen, then smiled. "Nothing's wrong. You're having triplets." The room tilted. "3?" I whispered. "3 healthy babies," she confirmed. "Congratulations!" Graham laughed, actually laughed, with pure joy. But lying there with gel on my belly and my future suddenly tripled, I felt the first flutter of fear. Victoria's reaction was odd. When we told her, she went very still. Then, "How wonderful. You'll need help, of course. I know the best obstetric practice in the city. Dr. Barber is exceptional." "I'm happy with my doctor," I said. "Nonsense. Pregnancy is risky enough without multiplying it by 3. I'll make the appointment." "Mother," Graham warned. "I'm only trying to help." She touched the pearl necklace I still wore. I'd gotten in the habit of wearing it to family dinners, a peace offering. "We take care of our own." I should have paid attention to the way she said our. The problems started small. Missed calls from my doctor's office that I never received, appointment cards that disappeared from my purse. Then one afternoon, I arrived for my 20-week scan to find my appointment had been canceled. "But I confirmed yesterday," I insisted. The receptionist looked sympathetic but helpless. "I'm sorry. Would you like to reschedule?" I drove home in tears, hormones and frustration tangling in my chest. Graham found me sobbing on the couch. Hey, he soothed. "It's just a mix-up." "It's the 3rd mix-up this month." He frowned. "Maybe we should consider Mother's doctor, just for a second opinion." I should have said no, should have trusted my instincts. But I was tired and scared and growing 3 humans inside me. "Fine, 1 appointment." Dr. Barber's office felt more like a law firm than a medical practice. Everything was leather and dark wood, designed to intimidate. The woman herself was thin as a blade, with cold hands and colder eyes. "Interesting," she said, reviewing my files. "Your previous doctor noted some concerns." "What concerns?" I hadn't heard about any concerns. "Fluctuating hormone levels, inconsistent measurements." She looked at me over her glasses. "Have you been taking any medications, supplements?" "Just prenatals." "Any history of mental illness, anxiety, depression?" The questions felt wrong, invasive in a way that had nothing to do with medical care. "I had some anxiety in college. Doesn't everyone?" She made a note. A long note. After that appointment, things shifted. Graham started watching me differently, like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. He'd find me talking to my belly, to the babies, and his face would do something complicated. "The doctor called," he said one evening. "She wants you to come in for some additional tests." "What kind of tests?" She didn't say, just that it's important. I went, because what else could I do? But this time the office was different. A different floor, different staff. The nurse who took my blood pressure wouldn't meet my eyes. "The doctor will explain everything," she kept saying. Dr. Barber entered with another woman, older, with kind eyes and a clipboard. This is Dr. Patel, she said. She specializes in maternal psychology. My stomach dropped. I don't need a psychologist. It's just a consultation, Dr. Barber soothed. Given your history. What history? But they just exchanged looks, and I realized with dawning horror that a history had been created for me. A narrative I hadn't written. The tests were wrong. All wrong. Psychological evaluations disguised as prenatal care. Questions about my pregnancy experience that felt like traps. Do you ever doubt you're pregnant? Dr. Patel asked gently. It's common with the hormones. I can feel them moving, I said. All three of them. They're real. Another note. Another look. When I got home, Graham was waiting with Chinese takeout and a strange expression. How did it go? They think I'm crazy, I said flatly. Nobody thinks that. But he wouldn't look at me. That night, I woke to find him standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear. Understand, Mother, but if the doctors say... He saw me watching and hung up quickly. Who was that? Just work. The lie sat between us like a third person in the room. I started keeping my own records. Videos of my growing belly, recordings of the baby's movements. A journal documenting every kick, every flutter. Evidence, I thought. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind. But doubt is insidious. It creeps in through the cracks. When the next ultrasound at Dr. Barber's showed inconclusive results, when the blood tests came back unusual, when Graham started suggesting maybe I should rest more, worry less, I began to wonder if maybe something was wrong with me. The night they took me, it was snowing. I remember because I'd been watching the flakes fall, one hand on my belly, feeling the babies tumble and kick. Graham made tea. It tasted strange, bitter despite the honey. I don't feel well, I said, and the words came out slurred. I know, baby, I know. We're going to get you help. The room wobbled. What did you... It's for the best, he said, and he was crying. The doctors explained everything. You're sick, Camille. But we're going to make you better. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't work. Tried to scream, but my voice was gone. The last thing I remember is Graham carrying me to the car, whispering apologies into my hair while the snow fell like ash around us. I woke up in a place that wasn't quite a hospital. Too nice to be a hospital. The walls were cream-colored, the bed soft, the windows barred with decorative iron that might have been beautiful if it hadn't been a cage. My throat was raw. Shh. A nurse appeared, round-faced and smiling. You're safe. You're at Whitmore Wellness Retreat. Whitmore, of course. My babies, I managed. Her smile flickered. The doctor will explain everything. But the doctor, not Barber, not Patel, someone new, explained nothing. Just words like pseudocesis and persistent delusional disorder and for your own safety. They showed me ultrasounds, fake ones, they had to be fake, that showed an empty womb. I can feel them moving. The mind is powerful, the doctor said kindly. It can create sensations that feel very real. They gave me pills, small white pills that made the world fuzzy at the edges. I pretended to take them, hiding them under my tongue, spitting them out later. Because I could still feel them, my 3 little ones, swimming in their secret sea, oblivious to the madness around them. Days blended into nights in that place. Cream walls, soft voices, pills I learned to hide with increasing skill. The other patients, guests, they insisted we call ourselves, wandered the halls like ghosts. Women with money and secrets, tucked away where they couldn't embarrass anyone. I've been here 2 years, my roommate Sarah told me one night, ever since I tried to leave my husband. They can't keep us here, I said. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Can't they? I learned the schedule. Breakfast at 8, group therapy at 10, where we discussed our journey to wellness. Individual sessions in the afternoon where Dr. Kemp, that was his name, tried to convince me my pregnancy was a fantasy. Let's explore why you might have created this delusion, he'd say, fingers steepled like a TV psychiatrist. I didn't create anything. I'm having triplets. Camille, we've discussed this. The tests are fake. He'd sigh and make notes. Always notes. But I had an ally. Mariah, one of the night nurses, was different. Younger than the others, with kind eyes and careful hands. She'd linger when she brought my evening meds, watching as I pretended to swallow them. One night she whispered, "I can see your belly moving." I almost sobbed with relief. "You believe me?" "My mother died in a place like this," she said quietly. They said she was delusional too. Said the baby she was carrying wasn't real. She died in labor, and the baby, my sister, disappeared. No record she ever existed. "Help me," I begged. She looked away. "I can't, but I won't stop you from helping yourself." That night, she forgot to lock the medicine cabinet. I found my chart, read the lies written in medical terminology. Found something else too. A receipt for a payment from V. Whitmore to the facility. Monthly payments. Keeping me here wasn't medical. It was business. The snow started again in my 4th month there. Real time, not the dreamlike drift of medicated days. I watched it fall from my barred window and felt the babies respond, as if they knew winter meant something. The biggest one? I'd started thinking of them as big, middle, and little, kicked hard enough to make me gasp. "Getting stronger," I whispered to them, "just like your mama needs to." Mariah began leaving me gifts. Extra food. I was always hungry, eating for 4 despite what they claimed. Pencils and paper hidden in pillowcases. And one night, a key. "Power goes out sometimes in storms," she said casually. "The backup generator takes a few minutes to kick in. Electronic locks fail." I understood. The storm came 2 weeks later. I lay in bed, fully dressed under my covers, feeling the building tension in the air. The lights flickered once, twice, then darkness. I counted to 10, then moved. The door opened with a soft click. The hallway was chaos. Nurses rushing with flashlights, patients calling out. I walked like I belonged there, one hand on my belly, the other trailing the wall. Mariah waited by the service exit with a coat and car keys. "There's an old ranger station about 15 miles north," she said quickly. "My friend stocks it with supplies. Go there first." "Come with me," I begged. "They'd know it was me. Go, now." I went. Drove into the swirling snow in a truck that smelled like pine needles and gasoline. The babies rolled and kicked, as if they knew we were finally free. 15 miles felt like 1,500. Every set of headlights made my heart stop. The ranger station was barely more than a cabin, but it had a wood stove and canned goods and blankets that smelled like mothballs. I built a fire with shaking hands, then sat on the floor and cried until I couldn't anymore. "We made it," I told my belly. "We're out." But even as I said it, I knew out was just the beginning. I had no money, no identification. They'd taken everything. I was a pregnant woman who officially didn't exist, carrying babies the world had been told were imaginary. And somewhere in the snow, my husband was mourning a wife he'd been convinced was insane. The contractions started at dawn. Too early, I thought desperately. I wasn't due for another month. But trauma and stress had pushed my body to its limits, and my children were done waiting. I tried to remember everything from the birthing classes I'd taken in another lifetime. Breathe, count, stay calm. But I was alone in a cabin in the woods, snow piling against the windows, and calm was impossible. Between contractions, I checked Mariah's supplies. Clean towels, thank God. A first aid kit. Bottles of water. She'd thought of everything except the possibility I'd give birth here. The pain came in waves, each one threatening to pull me under. I paced, I rocked, I cursed Victoria Whitmore with every breath. 8 hours in, my water broke with a splash that would have been comedic in any other situation. "Not yet," I begged my babies. "Please, not yet." But babies come when they come. I don't remember deciding to push. My body simply took over, ancient knowledge overriding modern fears. The first baby came fast. Too fast. I barely had time to position myself before I felt the overwhelming urge to bear down. "Okay," I panted. "Okay, we're doing this." I caught him myself. This tiny, perfect person who'd been big in my belly. He was smaller than I'd expected, but his cry was strong and angry. I cleaned him with shaking hands, wrapped him in a towel, and placed him in a dresser drawer I'd lined with blankets. "One down," I whispered. 2 to go. The second baby, middle, came 20 minutes later. quieter than his brother, but his eyes were wide open, taking in this strange new world. I went through the motions again. Clean, wrap, nestle safe, while my body prepared for the final act. Little took her time. An hour passed, then 2. I was exhausted, depleted, certain I couldn't do this again. But then I heard her brothers crying in their makeshift cribs, and something primal kicked in. One more, just one more. She came as the storm began to break. Sunlight streaming through the frost-covered windows, the smallest but fiercest screaming her displeasure at the cold world. I held all 3 of them then, these impossible children I'd been told didn't exist, and laughed through my tears. "Ezra," I said to Big, who'd already claimed his place as protector. Levi, to Middle, whose artist's soul I could somehow already see. And Zion, to Little, my warrior girl disguised as the runt. I must have passed out eventually because I woke to Mariah's face above mine. "Holy shit," she said. "You actually did it." She'd come as soon as her shift ended, terrified of what she'd find. Instead, she found me and 3 tiny miracles, all of us worse for wear but alive. "We need to get you to a hospital," she said. "No hospitals. They'll find me." "Camille, no hospitals," I repeated. "Please." She stayed for 3 days, teaching me what she knew, making sure we were stable. She brought supplies, formula to supplement when my milk was slow, clothes from Goodwill that smelled like other people's lives. "You need a plan," she said the night before she left. "I know. And a name. A new name." I thought of all the women who'd disappeared into their own lives. "Nina," I said. "Nina Clark." She nodded. "There's a woman in Philadelphia. She helps people start over. Domestic violence survivors, mostly, but..." She handed me a card. Just a phone number, nothing else. "Tell her Mariah sent you." "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Because someone should have helped my mother," she said simply. "And because those babies deserve a chance." The woman in Philadelphia asked no questions. She set me up with documents that would pass basic scrutiny, found me an apartment in a neighborhood where nobody looked too closely at their neighbors. I became Nina Clark, single mother of 3, working whatever jobs I could find while my babies slept. I wrote at night, when the apartment was quiet and the weight of our secret felt heaviest. Stories poured out of me, fiction that wasn't quite fiction, about women who disappeared and found themselves in the vanishing. I sent them out under pseudonyms, collected rejection after rejection, until finally, someone said yes. Years passed in a blur of night feedings and first words, scraped knees and bedtime stories. My boys grew like weeds, Ezra serious and protective, Levi with paint constantly under his fingernails, Zion, who insisted on being called Z, fearless and fierce despite being the smallest. "Tell us about our dad," Ezra asked one night. He was 6, old enough to notice the absence. "He loved you before you were born," I said carefully. "But sometimes grown-ups make mistakes." "Did he die?" Levi wanted to know. "No, baby, he's just lost right now." "Maybe we should find him," Zai suggested, practical as always. "Maybe someday," I said, tucking them in. "But right now, we have each other." I'd built us a life. Not the one I'd planned, but a life nonetheless. I wrote scripts for a production company that didn't care about my thin resume as long as I delivered. The kids went to a charter school where creativity mattered more than pedigree. We had Friday movie nights and Sunday pancakes and a neighbor who taught the boys chess while I worked. I tried not to think about Graham. But sometimes I'd see something. A man arguing with a barista, snow falling on a Tuesday, and the wound would open fresh. The book happened by accident. I'd been writing our story in pieces, unable to stop myself from bleeding onto the page. One night, I looked at the pile of pages and realized I had something. Not our literal story, I wasn't that foolish, but a fictionalized version. A thriller about a woman gaslit into madness who escapes with her children and rebuilds. "It's brilliant," my agent said. "Dark as hell, but brilliant. It sold at auction. It sold it." Hollywood came calling. I said no to everything. Interviews, tours, publicity. "Let the mystery add to the mystique," my publisher said. Fine by me. Nina Clark could be a recluse as long as Camille Evans stayed dead. But the universe has a sense of humor. Mom! Ezra came running one afternoon, laptop in hand. They're making your book into a movie. My blood went cold. What? Look. He showed me the article. Production company, A-list director, and the founder of the company. Graham's face stared back at me from the screen. Older, thinner, but unmistakably him. Mom? Levi touched my arm. You okay? Fine, I lied. Just surprised. I turned down every offer to be involved, but they persisted, and eventually I had to take a meeting or risk looking suspicious. I wore a wig, glasses, clothes that Nina would wear, spoke differently, became someone else entirely. Graham wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. Just executives and assistants, all eager to discuss the vision. I kept waiting for someone to look at me and know, but nobody did. I was just another writer, noteworthy only for my anonymity. The themes of gaslighting and medical abuse, the director said. They're so timely, so important. Yes, I agreed, voice steady. Important. But as production moved forward, Graham got involved. Notes on scripts, requests for meetings. I dodged and weaved, always unavailable, always working through intermediaries. My agent thought I was being difficult. I let her. Then came the call that changed everything. Strangest thing, she said. Graham Whitmore wants to make a statement at the premiere. Something about the film's personal significance. His people won't say what. I hung up and threw up. My body remembering fear it had tried to forget. That night, I sat my boys down. They were 8 now, old enough for some truths, if not all of them. I need to tell you something, I said. About your father. They listened with wide eyes as I gave them the gentlest version I could manage. A grandmother who didn't approve. Lies that separated us. Why we'd had to hide. She sounds mean, Zai said flatly. She was scared, I said, surprising myself with the generosity. Sometimes fear makes people do terrible things. Do you still love him? Levi asked. Our dad? I thought about lying. It would be easier. I love who he was, I said finally. But I don't know who he is now. Maybe he's looking for us, Ezra said hopefully. Maybe, I allowed. But we can't count on that. Except maybe we could. Because 3 weeks later, another article. Graham Whitmore, tech mogul turned film producer, holding a press conference, accusing his mother of destroying his marriage, of hiring doctors to declare his pregnant wife insane, of a conspiracy that sounded too fantastic to be real, except it was. My wife disappeared 8 years ago, he said, looking directly at the camera. I was told she was delusional. I believed the doctors my mother hired. I believed the lies. Camille, if you're out there, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. The video went viral within hours. Comment sections exploded with theories, support, condemnation. #find Camille started trending. My phone, Nina's phone, rang constantly. I turned it off and tried to think. Mom, Ezra said quietly, he's looking for you. I know, baby. Are you going to tell him about us? I looked at my 3 miracles, these children who'd been denied before they were even born. I don't know. Victoria Whitmore's response came the next day, a careful statement through lawyers about her son's mental health struggles and grief-induced delusions. She'd learned well how to weaponize psychiatry, but Graham had learned too. He posted medical records, payment receipts, a paper trail Victoria had been too arrogant to fully hide. The court of public opinion turned savage. Victoria Whitmore lied, Hatch believe Camille. My agent called, breathless with excitement. The premiere is going to be insane. Can you imagine if— No, I said. But no, except the boys had other ideas. We want to go, Ezra announced at dinner. To the premiere. Absolutely not. Mom, Levi said gently. He's our dad. He let them take me. He was lied to, Z interrupted. You said so yourself. Fear makes people do terrible things. Thrown by my own words, outsmarted by 8-year-olds. If we go, I said slowly, we go as the Clarks. Nobody knows who we are. They exchanged looks. Triple telepathy I'd never quite gotten used to. Okay, Ezra said, for now. The premiere was in New York. Red carpet, Klieg lights, the whole circus. I dressed the boys in their best clothes, thrift store finds supplemented by Target sales. Put on the designer dress the studio had sent Nina Clark, the reclusive author. Painted my face into a mask. You look beautiful, Mom, Levi said. Like a princess, Zai added, then made a face. But like a warrior princess. With a sword, Ezra finished. My 3 musketeers. My reasons for everything. The theater lobby was packed. I kept the boys close, one hand on Ezra's shoulder, the other holding Levi and Zai's hands. We were nobody, just another family here to see a movie. Then I saw him. Graham stood near the bar, surrounded by people but somehow alone. He looked exhausted, haunted, but also determined in a way I recognized. The same look he'd had when he first asked me out, when he'd proposed, when he'd promised to love me forever. Is that him? Zai whispered. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He looks sad, Levi observed. We found our seats, middle of the theater, anonymous in the crowd. The lights dimmed. Graham took the stage. 8 years ago, I failed the person I loved most in the world, he began. I let fear and lies poison my judgment. I chose to believe doctors and family over my own wife. And because of that cowardice, she vanished. The theater was silent, hundreds of people holding their breath. This film tells a fictional story, he continued, but the themes are real. Medical gaslighting, institutional abuse, the way we dismiss women's truths as hysteria. I'm funding this film as a form of penance, but also as a promise. Camille, if you're out there, I will spend the rest of my life earning the chance to apologize properly. To you and to... His voice broke. To our children, if they exist. If they survived despite everything. I felt 3 small hands grip mine tighter. The film was brutal to watch. Not because it was bad, it was brilliant, but because it was ours. Our story refracted through Hollywood's lens, but ours nonetheless. I watched myself on screen, renamed and reimagined, but essentially me, fighting for babies everyone said weren't real. Halfway through, Zai leaned over. Mom, you're crying. I know, baby. It's okay, she whispered. The mom in the movie wins. So did you. When the credits rolled, the standing ovation was immediate. Graham returned to the stage, and that's when Ezra stood up. Ezra! I hissed. Sit down! But he was already moving, his brothers scrambling after him. 3 small boys pushing politely through the crowd, determined as their genetics dictated. I followed, heart hammering as they approached the stage. Graham was mid-sentence when he saw them. His words died. Ezra climbed the stairs first, all grave dignity. Levi followed, then Zai, who had to jump for the last step. They stood in a line, my 3 impossible children, facing the father they'd never met. Hi, Ezra said into the sudden silence. We have questions. Graham's face went through a symphony of emotions. Confusion, hope, recognition, because how could he not recognize them? Ezra had his jaw, Levi his eyes, and Z had his stubborn set to her shoulders. He started, then stopped. The entire theater held its breath. I climbed the stairs on shaking legs. No wig could hide me now. No glasses could disguise what he'd once memorized. Camille, he breathed. Hello, Graham. The theater erupted. Cameras flashed, phones appeared, but I only had eyes for him. For the man I'd loved, who'd let me go, who'd spent 8 years learning the price of that letting. Security, someone shouted. Clear the stage. No, Graham said sharply. No, they stay. Ezra stepped forward, my brave boy. Are you our father? Graham's eyes filled. I think so. You think or you know? Zai demanded. Z, I warned. It's a fair question, Graham said. He knelt, putting himself at their eye level. What are your names? Ezra, my oldest said. That's Levi and Zion. She goes by Zai. Ezra, Levi, and Zion, Graham repeated, like a prayer. How old are you? 8, they said in unison. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, tears were falling freely. Then yes, I'm your father, and God, I'm so sorry. Mom says fear makes people do terrible things, Levi offered. Were you scared? Terrified, Graham admitted. and I let that terror make me stupid. That's what Mom said too, Zai noted. That you were stupid. Zion! What? You did? Graham laughed. Actually laughed. She was right. I was monumentally stupid. The theater manager appeared, wringing his hands. Perhaps we could move this somewhere private. But Ezra shook his head. We waited 8 years. They can wait 8 minutes. My son, the negotiator. You believed them, I said quietly, when they said I was sick. I did, Graham said, still kneeling, for about 6 months. Then I started questioning things, then investigating. By the time I knew the truth, you were gone. Really gone. And Victoria? His face hardened. Is in a memory care facility. Early onset dementia. Ironic, isn't it? The woman who weaponized psychiatric care lost to her own mind. I waited to feel satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. It's not ironic. It's sad. You're more generous than she deserves. No, I said. I just have more important things to care about than hating her. Zai tugged on Graham's sleeve. If you're our dad, how come you never found us? I looked, he said. I hired investigators, filed reports, offered rewards, but your mom... He looked at me with something like admiration. Your mom is very good at disappearing. We were never that far away, Ezra said. Just in Philadelphia. Graham's face crumpled. 2 hours. You were 2 hours away this whole time. We had a good life, Levi said kindly. Mom made sure. I can see that. Graham stood slowly, looked at me. The book. I should have known. The way it was written, the details. I should have known it was you. You saw what you expected to see, I said. A story, not a confession. Can I... He stopped, started again. Can I know you? All of you? I know I don't deserve it, but... That's not up to you, I said. He nodded, accepting the boundary. Or me, I continued. It's up to them. 3 pairs of eyes turned to my boys, my miracles, my fighters. They did their silent communication thing, entire conversations in glances. Finally, Ezra spoke for them all. We have conditions. Anything, Graham said immediately. First, Ezra held up a finger. You have to answer our questions, all of them. Second, Levi added, you can't try to change us. We like our life. Third, Zai finished, you have to prove you're worth it. Mom did all the hard parts. You don't get to just show up and be dad. Graham nodded solemnly. Those are fair conditions. And, I added, everything happens on their timeline, not yours. Understood. The theater manager coughed. The press would like, the press can wait, Graham said. Then to us, would you like to go somewhere quiet to talk? The boys looked at me. I saw my whole life in their faces. The fear, the flight, the fierce love that had carried us through. But also hope. The same hope I'd felt when a man argued about oat milk and changed my world. Okay, I said. Let's talk. We left through a side door, avoiding the chaos. 4 became 5 walking through New York streets, the boys between us like bridges we might someday cross. Mom? Levi whispered. Are you happy? I thought about the question, about happiness and its relationship to wholeness, about the family we'd been, the family we might become. I'm hopeful, I said finally. Sometimes that's enough. As we walked, snow began to fall. Not the bitter snow of that terrible night, but gentle flakes that caught the light and turned to stars. Z caught one on her tongue. Levi drew patterns in the air. Ezra walked with his chin up, watching this new father who might earn his trust. And Graham? Graham walked like a man given a second chance at breathing. Careful, grateful, aware that every step was a gift. Hey, he said suddenly. Does anyone want hot chocolate? 3 voices chorused yes. Mine made it 4. In the cafe, warm and bright against the snowing dark, I watched my children pepper their father with 8 years of questions. Watched him answer honestly, even when the truth hurt. Watched something that might have been a family begin to form, tender as new growth. We weren't fixed, weren't healed. The story wasn't over, might never be over. But we were here, all 5 of us, choosing to try. And maybe that was its own kind of miracle. Outside, the snow kept falling, covering the city in white, covering the past in possibility. In the window's reflection, I saw us. Not the family in the portrait that would never be taken, but the family in progress. Messy, complicated, real. Mom, Ezra said, look, we match. He was right. 5 cups of hot chocolate, 5 snow-dusted heads, 5 hearts learning to beat in time. Yeah, I said, surprising myself by reaching for Graham's hand. He laced our fingers together, careful as that first coffee date. We do.
Sometimes the people you trust the most can hurt you the deepest. Always listen to your instincts, because no one understands your story better than you. If you've ever fought to defend your truth, share it in the comments and hit like to spread the strength.